is down to you, and it is down to me. If you wish her dead, by all means, keep moving forward.
Perhaps an arrangement can be reached?
There will be no arrangement, and you're killing her.
Well, if there can be no arrangement, then we are at an impasse.
I'm afraid so. I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brains.
You're that smart, really? In that case, I challenge you to a battle of wits.
To the death? I accept.
Good. Then pour the wine.
Welcome back to episode 9 weeks. I'm really excited because next episode is my last episode. It's my finale episode, 10 Cows, episode 10. I'm super stoked. I'm releasing it on Easter Sunday. That is my favorite holiday of the year. So I want to just jump right into today. I've gotten asked a lot, how in the world does a girl like me who grew up in church and reads her Bible, has a relationship with God, prays, how in the world does someone like me end up in this situation? And I know I kind of touched on it just a little bit before, but I really just kind of wanted to bring it up because it is important.
Inhale this, but do not touch.
I smell nothing.
What you do not smell is called iocane powder. It is odorless, tasteless, dissolves instantly in liquid, and is among the more deadly poisons known to man. All right. Where is the poison? The battle of wits has begun. It ends when you decide and we both drink and find out who is right and who is dead.
I had just made the decision that I was just exhausted and tired and just done. And my mindset was, well, if my option is to be here or go to heaven, then I would rather just go to heaven. Why would I be here and just deal with these things?
But isn't there an issue in that?
No. That's
I thought there was an issue. Oh, that's just with Catholics.
it's an unknown issue because there's nothing in the Bible that says if you take your own life that you go to hell. That's not a thing. That's a thing that church people say.
That's what I'm saying. That's how we grew up. Because someone like me who does not know, who thinks that would be in there because it's been ingrained. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. It's been ingrained in us so much that I was like, is there a conflict? So if you're saying there isn't a conflict, okay, I understand that.
So that was my mindset, and I said, you know what? Speaking on that, you've heard the story of Judas. Judas on the cross, Judas betrays Jesus. The Bible actually says that Satan entered Judas, and then Judas betrayed Jesus. So in my head, I'm like, I don't really know how he would be responsible for that. Just saying, if the Bible says that he was possessed by Satan to go betray Jesus. Because as soon as Jesus died and Satan left him, Judas felt so much remorse that he went and hung himself. Because that's how much guilt he had. So in my head, I'm like, he killed himself because he was so remorseful because he was the person used to do that. But the Bible literally says that he was possessed and it did that.
So I get that part. Now, him feeling guilty for what he did, even though that was the part. Like some say that was the part he was meant to play. So for him killing himself or him dying naturally should not penalize him from going to heaven.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, because the thing is, he had a role to play.
Just so you know, they don't ever teach that in church, that Judas was so remorseful that he killed himself.
I know they don't.
You don't ever
Never hear that. I never heard it.
You don't hear the part widely that he was possessed by Satan.
I never heard that.
And then, so when you cap it that way, you're like, he was a follower of Jesus. but everybody has their weak moments or whatever. For whatever reason, he was possessed by Satan, and whatever happened, happened. And then he felt so bad that he killed himself. So when people say, oh, when you kill yourself, you're not going to go to heaven, I'm like, And I know I'm smiling and laughing, but it's crazy to think about being somebody who is looking up these things with intention versus just saying, wow, why do these people do this stuff, or how do they do this, and now they're legalizing everything. And I thought about, what would the Christians say? What would the non-Christians say? People who know me, what are they going to say? And people who don't know me, they're just going to be like, what's that? Because sometimes that's just...
Yeah, because, and it's going to be a whole thing like, well, you first they'll do that. Like, you grew up
they might, but
way, blah, blah, blah.
The church is not the church. The church is the people. And if you leave church and you are not church, that's between you and your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that I haven't been in church for so long, where I had to church hop a lot of times because it was hard finding a good church that actually read the Bible and stuff, I read the Bible myself. And I talk to God myself. So when people come to me and say stuff, dumb stuff about the Bible, or when I hear pastors say stuff, or they insert certain words or their own kind of agenda, I have a boop, no, and then I'll give you 3 shots to make a mistake. But when you make that 3rd strike, I ain't going to your church no more. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're not just going to lose credibility, because maybe at one time you got a little overzealous and you just kind of like, made a tiny little mistake and stuff. But I have to think that way because I don't want somebody filling my head with their own agenda or nonsense, whatever it may be.
Their own opinions.
Yes. And it's easy to do that, with the Bible, because the Bible is subjective and everybody can make it sound however they want it to sound, and I get it.
Church is on the same level as marriage, meaning the intention is meant to be organized chaos, to provide, protection, to provide assistance. There's a lot to be said for marriage, and there's a lot to be said for churches. But I do believe that that's the equivalency. However, everyone knows most marriages end in divorce for plenty of reasons. They jump into marriage without thinking about it. They're in it. But then when they don't feel like it, then they're out of it. I've heard people say, I don't feel married anymore, so I'm not going to act married anymore. It's the same with church. Just because anybody can get married, it doesn't mean that they're going to just be, a great spouse. There's a lot of studying. There's a lot of accountability. There's a lot of relationship work that has to be done when you are in a marriage and when you are in a church. And there are a lot of people who just don't do their share or do their part or have any intention of doing such, or maybe they just give up easy. Whatever the reasons are endless. They're limitless. The reason I said it is because I was very fortunate that I went to a church growing up where I got to learn about God in a way that was no pressure, for me anyways. And I'm only speaking for myself and my experience in church. I was very, very fortunate enough that I was never forced to go to church. I was never forced to pray. I was never forced to read my Bible. I was never forced to think a certain kind of way. My mom did whether it was on purpose or not on purpose, my mom did an excellent job at providing the opportunity and then letting us take it in our own way, I guess might be the best way to explain that. So yeah, I was very fortunate enough that the church I went to was multicultural. There was a lot of assistance that my family received when we were I'm trying to be mindful not to overshare other people's stories. The best way I can say it is there were times that the church was there for me in situations that were unsafe, and they were able to help us and protect us and be there for us and be a great support system at that time. So in my life, I always imagined that I would get married to a Christian guy and we would go to a Christian church and we would have the same support system that I was extremely blessed with growing up. That didn't happen at all. I never had that experience again. And I think that was crushing for me. And it was very difficult to accept. And I know what it was like to be church hopping. I'm just sharing my experience on what church, religion, Jesus, God, all this stuff has been on my side, just because I had went through having all that and still having suicidal thoughts. I think people make the wrong assumption that just because you get saved or you ask God to come into your heart, that you are exempt from problems. And I have heard that before. I had a girl in my middle school and she said, "Oh, I'm not saved yet." And I said, "Oh, why not?" She said, "Well, because once you're saved, you're not allowed to sin anymore." And I said, "Well, that kind of seems ridiculous because it seems like unrealistic. Everybody sins all the time. So that kind of seems really unrealistic. What religion are you again?" The church is supposed to be the place that organizes the chaos. It's not a place that just, makes you perfect and whole. From this point of view, I tried finding groups, women's groups or groups about depression. I tried finding, any religious groups online that dealt with suicide. I gotta be honest, I did not find anything remotely out there that I would recommend to anybody who was going through suicidal thoughts. I didn't. And that was disappointing to me. Where are the classes for people who are going through depression? Where are the classes for women who are thinking about having abortions or who have had abortions and they're dealing with those emotions afterwards, whether or not they agree or regret what they've done? There is not support for the single dads. Where are those classes at? So I think what I'm saying is there's not a lot of emotional support at church. I think it's a lot of superficial. I see a lot of superficial. That frustrates me a lot. I haven't been to church since 2020. Maybe the fact that there was less technology when I was younger. I sound so old. And there was not all this, look how cool we are. Maybe that's why everything was more hands-on. And now things are a lot more hands-off and less emotional. Things are a lot more detached. I see a lot of pretty things in church. I see a lot of pretty promotions, pretty commercials. Come to our church. We're so loving. Everybody's friendly. La, 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 la. It's very difficult, even as adults, to, make friends or to divulge your personal information of your life to other people. And then when you do, and then people are it seems like people are kind of conditioned to just not care about what you're going through. Because they don't want to intrude. It's that hard line from a church just teaching you about God, or is a church supposed to be there for you emotionally as well? Is it even their responsibility to even have something there? Maybe it's not their responsibility at all. Maybe their job just starts and stops with, "Hey, Jesus is real," the end. And maybe that's their job. I can't say for sure what their job is supposed to be or what the expectations are. So I think at the end of the day, what really happened was I just happened to be extremely spoiled at the church that I had grew up in. It set my expectations up extremely high that when I got older, I thought that I would get married, go to church, and have this, great church life, great support system, great church friends, be involved in church, all these different things. And then when I grew up and that didn't happen, that was extremely frustrating for me. My cats are playing, so if you hear them, that's them. I remember one of the things I learned over these past few months was that I have absolutely been a prisoner of my own expectations. My husband used to say, "Your expectations of me are too high. Your expectations of me are too high." And in my head, I was like, "I don't have no expectations of you. This is the stupidest thing I ever heard." He was already near perfect. And I'm not even exaggerating. If there was somebody who's near perfect, because again, nobody's perfect, and he definitely was not perfect. But if anybody was going to be near perfect, it would have been him. So I said, I don't have expectations. I don't have high expectations of you. You set the expectations. That's just how awesome and amazing you are. You're already there. You've arrived. So I'm just expecting for you to maintain it. And apparently that in itself is just its own level of expectations that you put on somebody to maintain who they are or where they are, or for them to hold up their own strength and things like that. So church can be a wonderful support system for some people. For others, it's not. Church can be, what you make of it. And I think it's just something else in life that you just have to manage your expectations on. And I'm saying that because it is just as important as the decision you make on the spouse that you choose. No, there's no such thing as a perfect spouse. But I remember telling people growing up, and I manifested my divorce myself, and I'll mention that in my last video, but I totally manifested my divorce. That's a given. I remember saying, all men suck. So you have to find the one that sucks the least, and then you marry that one, and then you do your best to make it work. Don't do that. That's terrible advice. There is a whole nother side of it. And I'm going to talk about all that in my final episode. I'm not saying that I'm never going to go back to church. I'm definitely not anti-church. There's absolutely a place for church. And I know there's a lot of loving, caring people in church. There's a lot of sad, hurting people in church. I just want people to understand that just because you go to church, just because you believe in God, means that you are somehow completely absolved from ever having depressing thoughts or suicidal thoughts, because that's not the case. Hopefully you guys have been able to see from where I was then to where I am now that there is a path to come out of whatever that fog that you are in. And it does not in any regards mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that you're not going to feel anything. You might feel kind of in a zombie state or a little bit, dead inside for, a week or two. You might feel extremely numb. You may feel like a burn victim. But you have to give yourself time to let the days pass to get you to the point where you start feeling okay and start feeling like, okay, I'm good. And that'll happen if you're taking the right steps. So on a lighter note, so for me, some of the stuff that's been helping me a lot is I was working really hard through those 9 weeks to making sure that I can see myself happy again. Because there was a part where I couldn't even dream at all. Like I mentioned before, I was telling my ex, you have to meet a really great woman because I need you to be happy. I needed for him to find happiness because I loved him so much. He was a great guy. And I wanted to make sure that if I couldn't be happy, that at least if I couldn't be happy, then at least that he could be happy. And I was struggling so hard with where I was that at least if he found happiness, then it was like a win for me and I would have been super stoked. So now I got to the place where I started saying, let me find myself to be happy. When I noticed that after a while of making myself proud, I could start dreaming again and starting seeing myself dreaming again and finding some happiness and finding some joy in life and actually seeing myself being happy in the future. When you're going through suicidal thoughts, you really can't see that far into the future. You really can kind of only see like up to here. You're not seeing this whole big, I can do this, I can do anything. You don't feel that kind of way. I would be surprised if anybody can see themselves like past like that day or even like that week of actually having like, this is going to be a great day kind of feeling. I can't. I was able to start making some new goals for myself, starting to make career changes and career moves that I needed to do. But I feel like that's how I knew that I started evolving to a different person, was because I could actually see myself doing stuff long term. I could actually see myself being in a relationship and being married and having kids and like growing old with somebody. And even though I could see those things with my ex, it was always the conflict between the I can and I can't person, which I'll talk about in the next episode. It was always that battle between those two people. And in that situation, the I can't person won. There were things that helped me significantly, such as doing hypnosis. I remember when I was getting over my ex, I used hypnosis on how to forget my ex. I remember one time on my lunch break, because I was, going through the breakup and everything, and my ex's name had a lot of real estate on my head. And I listened to this hypnosis on how to forget your ex. And it was funny because when I woke up for about 15 minutes, not only could I not remember his name, but I couldn't remember my ex-husband's name. And I was with him for like 10 years or something. So that was hilarious. I texted my friends. I said, this is funny. But disclosure, if you're going to use any kind of affirmations, meditations, hypnosis, you have to make sure that you do your research, know exactly what you're putting into your mind, know exactly what you're putting into your subliminal consciousness, because my disclosure is you do not want to put stuff in your head that you don't want to put in your head. That's my disclosure. But I absolutely have been loving using the hypnosis every night when I go to sleep. I do a hypnosis or an affirmation or a meditation, and it has been extremely helpful. I am going to post a hypnosis below in the description, so you guys can check that out if you want to. It is a Christian meditation, but it's my favorite. And I noticed my Fitbit says that I sleep the deepest when I'm during those minutes that I'm listening to it. So that's kind of interesting too. The affirmations have been great. One of the things I learned was every 2 hours I had to put on my Alexa to say some kind of affirmation of some sort, or some kind of positive statement that I had to say to myself every 2 hours for months. Alexa, stop. So that's every 2 hours, and I've been doing that for months, and I actually still do that throughout this whole entire process. So that's been amazing. I finished my therapy because the truth is, the last 2 sessions I had with her, I was kind of, Poseidon, come. The last 2 sessions that I had with her was kind of difficult because I really couldn't really come up with stuff to talk to her about anymore, which was kind of funny because I told myself my job is that I want you to be bored when you're in our sessions because I want you to feel like we don't have anything to talk about anymore. So that was, that ended up working out because I said therapy is great for people that have to deal with their past. And life coaching is for people who are living in their future. And my past happened. My past is done. And there's nothing I can do about changing the past, but there's everything that I can do about changing my future. And there are things that I can do to avoid reliving my past. And now I get to do those things. I also, one of the books that my niece Elizabeth is here. My princess. Come in. Come in. I'm just finishing my filming. You can come in. No, come in. It's not live. I'm gonna. Yeah. You're funny. I'm reading this book attached, and I'm doing the audiobook, not reading, because sometimes reading can be like, ugh. But I love audiobooks, and I can listen to it over and over and over again. So I'm gonna have that link in the description as well. Attached is amazing. If you're even not, depressed or anxious or suicide, whatever. I think everybody should listen to this book. It's amazing. It's great about relationships and just understanding yourself and why you act the way you do and why you get frustrated when other people don't respond to you the way that common sense would tell you they should respond, and then you get mad. I think that happens to everybody. Also, I really like Tim Hahn. I'm going to put a link in the description below too. Tim Hahn is great. He talks about really just getting past your past and like living in your future. That's why therapy is great. I think therapy is great for everybody if you need to brain dump, which I severely needed to do in the beginning. I needed to brain dump. I had so much stuff. The first therapy session I had with my therapist, I was crying the entire time. I don't even know if she understood anything I said because I was crying the entire time. So I think therapy is great for everybody to brain dump. And then once you get past that point, after some other steps that you can take, then you'll be able to say goodbye to your therapist and then you'll be able to move on to life coaches. I'm a huge advocate for life coaches because therapy is to help you with your past. You don't live in your past. So brain dumping is great. Get out your system. And then you get a life coach because a life coach is going to help you create a brand new future. So Tim Hahn is he's a great life coach. I know I love my coach Danny. Coach Danny is still the one that I'm using now. But there's so many free content on YouTube. I thought YouTube was like for a bunch of, ridiculous people who just want to be on TV and be famous and, do dumb stuff like, what's that show? Stupidness. What are those things called? You look really cute, by the way.
Ridiculousness.
Ridiculousness. Yeah, like the dumb show, like Ridiculousness and stuff like that. But there's actually legit content. I mean, I've been learning so much stuff. There's so many tutorials. There's so much everything that you can learn online. I mean, shy of just learning how to be a surgeon, you can pretty much learn anything online. So that catches me up through the 9 weeks. I have my 1 episode left, episode 10 cows. Make sure you watch it. It's going to be on Easter Sunday. Thank you all for following my story, and I will see you for my finale episode. Bye.
Are you the sort of man who would put the poison into his own goblet or his enemy's? Now, a clever man would put the poison into his own goblet because he would know that only a great fool would reach for what he was given. I'm not a great fool, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you. But you must have known I was not a great fool. You would have counted on it, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
You've made your decision then?
Not remotely. Because iocane comes from Australia, as everyone knows. And Australia is entirely peopled with criminals. And criminals are used to having people not trust them as you are not trusted by me, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
And you must have suspected I would have known the powder's origin, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
You're just stalling now.
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you? You've beaten my giant, which means you're exceptionally strong. So you could have put the poison in your own goblet, trusting on your strength to save you, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you. But you've also bested my Spaniard, which means you must have studied. And in studying, you must have learned that man is mortal, so you would have put the poison as far from yourself as possible, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
You're trying to trick me into giving away something. It won't work.
It has worked. You've given everything away. I know where the poison is.
Then make your choice.
I will, and I choose What in the world can that be?
What? Where? I don't see anything.
Oh, well, I could have sworn I saw something. No matter.
What's so funny?
I'll tell you in a minute. First, let's drink. Me from my glass, and you from yours.
You guessed wrong.
You only think I guessed wrong. That's what's so funny. I switched glasses when your back was turned. Ha ha, you fool. Never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
To think, all that time it was Shortcut that was poisoned.
They were both poisoned. I spent the last few years building up an immunity to iocane powder.